spare his brother from oblivion, the second horseman rode forth. And his name was Death.
When we started Darksiders, we weren't quite sure where it was going to take us, what it was going to feel like to go out into the world, do some dungeons, get some items, come back into the overworld, explore for stuff, how we were going to sell the adventure aspect to it. But once we got to the end, we really saw what we had built for what it was, and I think that gave us a lot of clarity going into Darksiders 2 with how we wanted to structure the world and what we wanted players to experience.
In the first game, there were so many questions left open and people wanted to see more of the world, and now we got a chance to show the player underneath the hood of the underworld and things like that. We really want to kind of give players lots of places to explore and find out more about the fiction and meet more people, find more wondrous and kind of over-the-top areas that we couldn't really do when we were on Earth.
Yeah, and we always sort of pictured Darksiders as more of a fantasy world, and obviously the first one ended up taking place on Earth, where we had this sort of cool fusion of modern day meets that fantasy that we wanted to portray. And in Darksiders 2, now we get a chance to go into the underworld and really show some of that epic and over-the-top stuff that we didn't get to in Darksiders 1 because we had to base it in something that players were more familiar with as a reality. In Darksiders 2, we just get to go crazy with it, especially with our epic art team led by a guy like Joe Mad. We really get a chance to realize a lot of those visions.
It's a little bit more frantic, I think, than the first one. I mean, the traversals, flows a lot faster. There's a little bit more intent and commitment on the player side and timing element to the traversal that wasn't there on the first one. And we've been able to do more with the levels, do more verticality and more kind of complexity with the traversal element that Death's got that War didn't have. So yeah, it's allowed us a little bit more freedom and a little more flexibility in our playable space.
Yeah, everything Death does, he does with a lot of attitude. War was more about momentum and strength. Death's more about quick reflexes, agility, and doing things sort of under the table. He's a little bit more of he's kind of a dirty fighter. He's more feral than War was, so everything needed to move a little quicker. Things needed to blend together a little more seamlessly. So yeah, we built everything around that ideal for the character.
We're definitely trying to make Death different than War, and whatever we do in the future, I'm sure if we do any of the other Brothers from the Horsemen, we'll try and do the same. We'll try to diversify their abilities from what we're doing currently with Death.
Yeah, we don't have an official stance on sequels and where it's going, but we've always said from the minute we started Darksiders at Vigil that the big dream was to have all four horsemen together. I mean, you don't choose something like the four horsemen of the apocalypse without eventually wanting to see all four of them playing together at the same time. And naturally, with the kind of depth we're introducing in Darksiders 2, you'd want them all to play a little bit differently, and they start to maybe fit into class archetypes that you might see in other games with that kind of depth. So yeah, I mean, that's our pipe dream anyway. People just got to keep buying it. You never know where it's going to go. We didn't think that players got overwhelmed by what was in Darksiders 1. They managed it pretty well. In fact, they have more choices in Darksiders 2, so they could end up with more moves at their disposal, more things to think about and consider, which just gets to the depth of the game. And as to things like the damage numbers specifically that you see in some of the demos, now that we have a full loot system, players actually get to, if they want to, because you really probably can go through the game pretty simply, but if you want to have that edge over the enemies, you're going to care about the loot and stuff that you're playing with. And to see the changing on a couple pieces of gear that might have slightly different statistics. Yeah, those damage numbers give you that feedback, whereas just seeing a health bar move or the number of hits it takes to kill a character is a little bit it's just too insignificant. So seeing those numbers is great and quick feedback for how you're managing your gear.